Jeni Browne. Welcome to this week's edition of MFB News. I hope this finds you incredibly well and I hope that you had the most wonderful long Easter break. Thank goodness it didn't rain for the whole thing. Now, in terms of what we've got for you today, we're going to do our usual roundup of what's been happening with swap rates, lender interest rates, lending criteria changes. We're then going to share the latest information from the nationwide with regards to house prices, and then we're going to wrap up with some rumoured changes to the Renters Reform Bill. Okay, so today is Wednesday and it is the second day back, as it were, the very start of the second day back after the Easter break. And it looks like things are starting off positively in terms of the direction of travel with swap rates, thank goodness. So where are we? So 2-year swap rates as of 10:30 last night, so that would have been Tuesday. 2-year swaps are at 4.351, 1 month ago 4.550, so a reduction of 20 basis points there month on month. 1 year ago, incidentally, 4.133, so elevated compared to a year ago, but month on month down by 0.2%. Very similar story for your 5-year swap rates as well. So 5-year swaps are at 3.766, 1 month ago 3.990, so actually just tipping over the 20 basis point reduction there, and 1 year ago 3.647. So, you know, good news actually. So rates have, swap rates have been easing down over the last kind of 10 days. They're staying down, which is great because, as we know, because I always bang on about it, consistency for lenders in terms of cost of funds is really important because it allows them some certainty in terms of how to price. Now, in terms of how this is shaken out in the mortgage pricing world, not huge amounts of changes, but don't forget we've had, since we last spoke, we've only had 3 working days and there have been some movements on pricing, but not huge amounts. So I think the week we're in now is going to be the biggie in terms of starting to see things really look to shift. But we have seen some pricing changes nonetheless. So we've seen Bank of Ireland bring down their rates by up to 0.36%. Bank of Ireland are a sort of a high street lender, as it were, so personal names, no HMOs, no multi-units, landlords with really less than 10 buy-to-let properties in the background. One of the things they do offer, which is really good, is something called top slicing, which is where if you're doing the rental calculation to determine how much you can borrow based on the rental income and the numbers aren't stacking up, but you have oodles of disposable income in the background, there is a chance that they can factor in some of that disposable income to essentially top up the shortfall in the rent. So rates down by 0.36% with those guys. Now we've seen Capital Home Loans reduced by their rates by up to 0.37%. And what they say is that they've got standard rates now from 3% and HMO rates from 3.02. Now, Capital Home Loans are a specialist lender. So these guys are lending on your HMOs, multi-units, limited companies, that kind of stuff. And so therefore a rate at 3%, as you'll probably be, the more cynical amongst you will probably suspect that there is a really, really large arrangement fee with those particular products. But pricing from that point nonetheless. Now, West One haven't repriced as such, but what they have done is bring out limited edition products. So their 2-year fixed rates are now from 3.64 and 5 years from 4.05. And again, West One specialist lender, so those lower rates, you can imagine the kinds of fees that sit alongside of those. We've seen Keystone reduce their 5-year fixed rates and also their product transfer rates by 0.1%. So their 5-year fixed rates are now from 4.94, a much more realistic kind of number, I think, in terms of specialist lenders, which Keystone are. Again, a fantastic lender, very, very kind of, I want to say old school essentially. So they have some very experienced underwriters. And so if we have a case which isn't really ticking boxes with lenders who are more reliant on kind of automatic decisioning, Keystone are definitely one of the lenders who stay in the forefront of our mind. So examples of that will be day one remortgages, someone who's got a tiny, bit of a credit blip, in the background. I haven't had enough coffee yet, in the background, and so they can take a view on that kind of stuff. They're quite pragmatic. Another thing that they're able to do is lend on subleases, which is quite unusual. So lots of great stuff in their criteria. So good to see those guys bring pricing down as well. And we've seen Landbay finally make reductions of up to 0.1% across their product range. And that includes their HMOs, standard products, multi-units, and also they've got limited companies in that suite as well. But more interesting, they've also relaunched 80% loan to value lending. Now, this is always an interesting one. So what we find is that when the property market is kind of on a downward trajectory, Some lenders will often step away from high loan to value lending because obviously you don't want to be lending 80% and then find out that, oh gosh, house prices have come down, we're now at 95% loan to value or something like that. It doesn't work in terms of their risk appetite. So what I always think is reassuring is when we've seen a lender come away from high loan to value lending and then re-enter it, it really kind of speaks volumes in terms of their sense of where we are in terms of house prices, and more on that to follow shortly. Now, conversely, we have seen a bit of an upward reprice from Kent Reliance and also Precise Mortgages, and they're part of the same group, so it kind of follows that if one puts their rates up by 0.3% and the other one will also put their rates up by 0.3%, and that's exactly what's gone on here. So increased rates from Kent and Precise. Why have they done this? They were pricing quite keenly, so I suspect maybe they've got quite busy with business volumes. They've put their pricing up a bit just to slow things down. They're exposed to the same cost of funds as everyone else, right? So there's no reason why their cost of funds has suddenly gone up by 30 bips compared to everybody else's. So it really just logic dictates it has to be kind of just to slow down business volumes. And this is how lenders kind of, in a very calm market, this is how they kind of tinker with things to drive up new lending volumes and slow them down again when they're getting overrun. And lastly, this week we've seen the Kensington make increases of their rates by 0.2%. Again, they're another lender who in the limited company space particularly were pricing very keenly. So I suspect they just kind of said, actually, we're getting a bit too busy here, so we're just going to tweak things slightly and push up pricing to slow things down. Now, in terms of lending criteria changes, just one change in the last week. Like I said, it's only been 3 days. So the fact we've got any is a bit of a miracle. And this is that the leads have kind of jumped on the rental calculation bandwagon that we've seen lots of lenders joining at the moment, and they've reduced their rental calculation. So what they're saying is if you take a 5-year fixed rate with them now, it's going to be the actual interest rate that you're paying plus 0.5% that they're going to stress the mortgage at, subject to a minimum of 5.5%. So as an example, if you were taking a 5-year fixed rate with the leads at 4.8%, they would add 0.5% to that, which makes the stress rate 5.3. It doesn't hit their 5.5 minimum, so therefore they'll be stressing at 125 or 145% at 5.5%. So very, very good news from the leads, and this is really kind of aligning them with where lots of lenders are currently going. And I think actually, as a mortgage broker, one of the biggest challenges we've seen over the last kind of year and a half, it's not, well, the pricing has obviously been, a nightmare, but really it's the rental calculation which has really held things back. To see more lenders start to, recognise that the environment is changing in terms of their risk appetite and how they need to kind of calculate things is really, really positive. Okay, so a quick ditty for you on house prices now, because I was reading an article which was commenting on the Nationwide, and the Nationwide is a big name that we all kind of know and trust, so I think anything they've got to say is really worth sharing. Now, what they've said is that house prices fell by 0.2% as an average in March. So the average house price, according to their index, is now £261,142. Now, despite this, the annual growth increased to 1.6% in March. It was 1.2% in February. Now, the Nationwide's chief economist, one Robert Gardner, has commented that the improvements in cost of living and a move towards target inflation has led to improved consumer sentiment. Income growth is now outpacing house price growth by a healthy margin, and that means that house price affordability is improving. And if these trends are maintained, activity in the housing market is likely to gain momentum. So essentially what they're saying there is that actually people are experiencing wage increases, but house prices are still in the negative, and therefore actually the kind of balance is being redressed, which means that more people are now able to afford housing that weren't before, and this is going to be further kind of supplemented by the reducing cost of mortgages, which we're going to continue to see going forwards, fingers crossed. So essentially what they're saying is actually if we continue on this direction of travel, this is going to really kind of heat up the market, and we're going to see things really start to gain some momentum. So again, really kind of echoing back to what we've been saying in previous weeks, it does feel like we're kind of really very near the bottom now in terms of house price reductions. And again, indeed, some areas haven't even seen a reduction, but for those areas which have, it feels like we're nearing the bottom. And so actually, it could be that the spring kind of property market buying season really is going to be a thing this year in terms of getting in before property prices start to tick up again. dare I mention the Renters Reform Bill? So an article came across my inbox the other day, and I thought actually I would share this one with you because I know that the Renters Reform Bill has been a real cause for consternation amongst the landlord community, and actually, rightly so. Essentially what the article was saying, that apparently the government is writing to Conservative MPs promising changes to the Renters Reform Bill to ease concerns over its anti-landlord bias. So the changes that have been kind of rumoured, and again, this is all rumours, so please don't kind of hold me to this, but I think actually if any of this comes to fruition, this can only be a good thing and may give some of you some peace of mind going forwards. So first of all, when a fixed term tenancy agreement ends, tenants will be unable to give 2 months notice unless they had been in a property for at least 4 months, essentially making the span of the tenancies, making them see out essentially a 6-month tenancy period. Here's the biggie. Reviewing the operation of the courts before ending Section 21 to ensure the justice system can cope with the workload. And I think this is the real biggie. Landlords are saying, look, if you really must end Section 21, and we're not happy about it, but if you are going to end it, the court system has to be fit for purpose, which at the moment it's not. And for those of you who kind of watch this video regularly, where I dragged you through my whole tenant eviction experience, I can vouch for this personally. Things are far too slow and it's very, very bad. So actually, I think the devil will always be in the detail with something like this, but actually making sure that the court system is fit for purpose, I think will go at least some way to alleviate some of the very, very fair concerns that landlords have around Section 21 being scrapped. Now, the next one was ensuring all types of student housing are covered by the planned grounds for possession to protect the annual cycle of student housing. So essentially what one of the concerns would be that actually with some of the changes that are going to be brought in, this would leave student landlords exposed because they would be unable to essentially ensure that they were able to have an empty property and re-let it on an annual basis, which is very standard in the student letting world. So essentially this sort of move would be to ensure that landlords could continue letting in that fashion. And lastly, reviewing the need for local authority licensing schemes in light of the proposed property portal. So what they're essentially saying is actually, if we're going to have a property portal, which is kind of setting out, about landlords explaining or detailing, if they're good landlords, if there's been problems, all this kind of stuff, why do we then need a licensing scheme as well? You're just doubling up on things. So actually, it could be that the property portal will replace licensing schemes potentially anyway. So those are the changes that are rumoured. So like I said, I think, if they actually were altered in the Renters Reform Bill, this would be a really, really positive things for landlords. However, at the moment, this is very much just rumour. Let's hope it comes true, and we'll keep you posted as we hear of any further changes. And that's us for this week, wrapping up for the first MFB news for April 2024. So if you have any questions or you'd like to have a chat with us about your mortgage, we'd love to hear from you. 0345 345 6788. And as always, there is huge amounts of information available on our website. Next week, we're going to be talking about some planned changes to EPCs. I was just catching up on an article about this just now, but I didn't want to make this today's episode too long for you. So there's something for you to get excited about already. Have a really fantastic week. Do look after yourselves. Let's hope the sun shines, and I'll catch you again same time next week.